And we're live, Marius. So good
Fantastic.
afternoon, everyone. Welcome
Afternoon.
to the fourth episode in Rhetoric Remix, where we talk to experts from around the world on some aspect of rhetoric. And in the past, we've had commentators from the US, from Saudi Arabia, from Pakistan, from the UK, from Denmark, from many, many different parts of the world, from Russia even. So, and of course, China most recently. So it's a great pleasure today to be with Mariusz Zagorski from Poland. Mariusz is a great supporter of World Speech Day in Poland, and so it's a particular pleasure to see him and have him here. And Mariusz is going to talk to us today about Polish rhetoric in Poland, and we'll give him a chance to tell us about that and the tradition of rhetoric in Poland, and then we'll maybe come back with some questions. But a great pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for contributing today, Mariusz.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm really glad to be here and to talk to you about rhetoric in Poland. So Polish rhetoric, I would say it's pretty much the rhetoric of ideas, of big words and great ideas that drive our imagination. And I think it goes back to the 16th century, when Poland became a republic with parliament, with rule of law. So it was monarchy, but with no dynasty, and kings were, we say, elected, but actually hired by parliament from Poland or from abroad. The first one was French Henri de Valois, who became later the King of France. We had a Hungarian king, some Swedish kings, some Saxons, some Polish as well. But it was republic, and it was called and labeled so, the republic, and people didn't use much the word Poland. They said rather the republic, and we have wonderful speeches from that time explaining this idea that it's not ethnicity, it's not religion, it's the republic that unites us, the idea of the republic. It survived for over 200 years, when eventually Poland was divided by Russia, Prussia, and Austria for over 100 years, and then they had 100 years, and then we had another big idea, which drew our imagination, which led us, and it was independence. The independence regained in 1918 after the First World War, and we had the new republic, called actually the Independent. This independence was lost again in 1939. And after that, after the Second World War, we had a communist regime imposed over us. And then we came up with another big idea, and it was solidarity, this great solidarity movement, this emblem, the word solidarity with a white, red flag over it, so it looked like. So it was a sign that gave us hope, and also a metaphor. And this is perhaps even more important. It was a metaphor of all we felt at that time and all we missed at that time. So I think we are a nation that understands and can appreciate the power of big ideas, of words, and we can use it so that when the leader of Solidarity, Lech Wałęsa, was supposed to speak in US Congress in 1989, people who wrote this speech came up with a brilliant idea that it should begin with the phrase, "we the people," just like American Constitution. And it opened, this symbolic phrase opened a quite new perspective, going back again to the 18th century, to our great hero Tadeusz Kościuszko, who was close friend to Thomas Jefferson and who fought in defense of our constitution declared in 1791, just after American and before French one. So it's all very symbolic, and even this that tomorrow we will celebrate the Constitution Day, the next anniversary of this act of the Constitution of 1791. So we can understand symbolic, and we can use it, and we can even denounce it when necessary, because sometimes, of course, this big idea and big words are misused. And in 1939, on the 1st of September, the very day when Germans invaded Poland, Ignacy Jan Paderewski, who was a great and super famous pianist, just like Lang Lang, or even more, but he was also a Polish prime minister for a while. He gave a speech on BBC on the word peace used by Hitler, and he said Hitler loves peace. He used it many times in many speeches on many occasions. So why can we find a peaceful agreement? Perhaps because we give a different meaning to the same word. Hitler's peace means give up all your hopes, surrender to all my wishes, etc., etc. And this is something we cannot accept. And this is interesting because when we look at the Cold War, so the period after the Second World War, this is pretty much a rhetorical conflict between two words, and one of them is peace, proposed by communists. There was this Russian word mir, peace, ubiquitous. It was everywhere. And on the other hand, there was freedom. And just like in Patrick Henry's famous speech back in 18th century, give me freedom or give me death, I'm not interested in peace, which is not even present. So this is somehow anticipated in this Paderewski's BBC speech in 1939. And when speaking of the Second World War, I'd like to mention a British speech about Poland from that period, delivered in Commons on the 3rd of September 1939 by Arthur Greenwood, who was at that time a deputy leader of the Labour Party. And he gave a speech on the 3rd of September saying that for 54 hours, Poland has stood alone at the portals of civilization, defending us, defending all free nations, defending all that we stand for and all that we hold dear. And he says, to her we say, so uses personification, to her we say, our hearts are with you. And I think it's remarkable and it's exceptional, not only because it's a great speech about Poland, but this is also a speech written in a way we tend to think and to speak in an allegorical, symbolic, and metaphorical way. So that's why I decided to mention this as well. So it is Polish rhetoric, at least as I can see it, as I feel it should be understood.
And that's a wonderful kind of overview, Marius. How do you think this sort of tradition and this sort of the great idea then now expresses itself in contemporary Polish rhetoric?
Yes, so we are looking for a new great idea, certainly, and I think we have a 30 years period of constant growth and freedom and democracy behind us, and I think we all want it to be stable, to be constant, to be well, to continue. And I think the word and the idea which is with us still, and we want to be our flag word now, is probably the success. We want success. We want to be stable, to be great country in the middle of Europe. And I think this is what drives us now. So we work hard to achieve a success. So that's how we describe the Polish people now, this way. And well, I'm convinced this is again the next big idea, big word that it's with us now.
And do you think there's a particular style of public speaking that characterizes Polish discussion and debate in any way? I'm always interested in the different kind of styles and cultures in speech making, because it's very often something that people lose and forget. So I was just wondered if there's anything that you think is characteristic.
Yes, I think it's always pretty emotional. So it appeals to emotions, it appeals to feelings, and appreciates feelings, I think. And well, it's very much based on flag words. So we always look for words which are important and refer to them just to describe what we want to achieve or convince people to. I think it's also very metaphorical. So we even in everyday communication, even in business communication, we like using metaphors. It creates sometimes a problem that we are not so straightforward. We are very periphrastic in what we say. So we use metaphors, we use allegories. That's probably characteristic when it comes to style of Polish rhetoric.
Right. And what about public attitudes towards rhetoric? Because I think one can sense that there are different attitudes in different nations. I suspect that there is still a kind of cultural belief in public speaking in for instance, in the United States and some parts of Europe. There's a sort of cynicism, I think, that's grown up partly, I think, as a result of the speeches of the Second World War. Do you think that's still the case? Do you think that there's a public cynicism towards public speaking, or do they kind of get it?
I think people in Poland wanted to be sincere very much. So then it always not well seen, well received when, for instance, when a speech is read by someone, by speakers. So it's
right.
So people rather expect it to be people to talk because otherwise they suspect it's not sincere. It's something that someone else wrote for the person, and so on, so on. So that's probably characteristics. So so there is no such a culture like in United States, which is changing, I think, now in United States very much, of speech writing as a professional activity, which is obvious that people use prompters or read speeches written by someone else. Yeah. So that it's not like this in Poland. So we can see this tendency that we expect speakers to be sincere, to speak from their heart, from their mind, even if it's not perfect when it comes to style, when it comes to how the speak is constructed, even grammar. It's not so important as the sincerity of a speaker. So that's definitely very characteristic.
Very interesting. So it's really that authenticity.
Yes, authenticity is a must, I would say, in Poland.
And the personality then that drives the speech.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And who are the sort of great exponents of public rhetoric now in Poland? Who are the sort of people that stand out in public life as great speakers that we should be aware of and aware of what they're saying?
Well, I think there are many talented people, as well in politics as well as in business. So I don't want to come up with any names, but there are many talented, successful, and listened people who speak very well, and even it's ever better. So I think the quality is also improving. So the style changes.
Right.
So in 90s we had mostly great intellectuals.
Yes.
Who delivered elaborated philosophical, existential, sociological speeches. Now everything tends to be more simple and appeal to, we say, normal people, to average people, to be understood. We look for simple language, simple words, for big ideas. So that's the point now, and many people are doing quite well on this.
And geographically, Poland sits in the middle of Europe, as you say.
Yes.
What are the sort of main influences in sort of cultural and then therefore rhetorical terms? Is it a Russian influence, or is it more of a sort of European influence?
I think definitely more European difference, and first of all, it is ancient and Latin influence. This is still, I would even say, it's still most important. So in the times I spoke about at the beginning, so the Republic, 16th, 17th, the 18th century. So the language of intellectuals was still Latin, and they studied Cicero, ancient texts, and so on, and it influenced pretty much Polish rhetoric. So we still continue to cultivate this heritage. I'm saying this also because I'm also a classicist. So I'm a Latinist myself, and I can follow it throughout the history. and can say that this is most important source of our way of thinking, a way of speaking as well. I wouldn't say, for instance, that there is any. I cannot point out any Russian influence in rhetoric in Poland, or even other one. I think we all look at British-speaking world, so Britain and the US. It's something that we follow and admire, of course. I like very much watching the commons and so on. So this is something we follow, and we are influenced by, certainly, for sure. So the ancient one,
Right.
of classical rhetoric of Cicero,
Right.
and the modern one of the English-speaking world. I think
Right.
these are two main sources that influence our rhetoric now.
Fascinating, the classical influence. If I may, what are the sort of some of the great speeches of Poland? You mentioned Lech Walesa and the great solidarity speeches. Are there other ones that stand out? Because again, one of the things that fascinates me is getting an inside track on the great speeches of other nations that we don't know about ourselves.
Yes, so of course there are some interesting speeches like this of Paderewski and this of from the time before the Second World War. But for the world, for international influence, I think the speaker who is worth mentioning now, mentioning here, is of course I think John Paul II, who was
Right.
who was a great communicator, and well, he also used this rhetoric of ideas as well. So he focused on some great ideas and words of this 20th century. So words like freedom, human, or work meant pretty much to him, and I think there was a reason for it, because these were three movements, the great movements of the 20th century. So liberalism and humanism and communism, and
Yes.
they were based on these three ideas, and he wanted very much to deliver his own vision of these three, simply because he understood that that was the demand, that people that was of concern of the world, and he wanted very much, and he tried very hard to deliver his own vision of these three ideas. So he really used this rhetoric of ideas, as I continue to say it.
Yes.
And he was also a great communicator, well prepared, because as a young man he was an actor.
Right.
He graduated in Polish studies, so he was a great speaker and really knew how to write speeches and how to deliver them to the world. So this is certainly a person worth mentioning here.
Yes, it's fascinating that one comes back again and again to this idea that speeches do change the world, that they can have an enormous influence on the way that ideas are spread, but also they can shape the way that people view the future and the things that they hold important.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And this is a good example. I think he changed the world somehow, and made it, well, a bit better place, I think. Well, so with words,
Yeah.
Everything starts with words. So good things and bad things, everything, ideas and words are at the beginning. Then
exactly.
Building, cars, inventions, other things constructed. I met one day. I travel a lot to the country, and going by bus. I met once a girl who told me that a Polish girl who was an engineer in somewhere in the world, leading the team designing jet engines. It was a very interesting person, and he told me a bit about her work. And when she heard about the time that I'm a specialist in communication, so he repeated again and again, saying about her work, that when I speak to my people, so jet engine design also starts with words, starts with speaking to people. So this is the best example, I think, to confirm what you just said.
Thank you, Mariusz. Well, thank you so much for your wonderful contribution on Poland and Polish rhetoric today, which is a lovely illumination, and as always, opens our eyes to other traditions and other ways of approaching public speaking, and it's fascinating. And thank you so much, Mariusz, for your contribution, and it's a great pleasure to have been with you today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure was mine. And if I may use the opportunity to thank you very much for this great idea, which is the World Speech Day. And I think I can say we all look forward to celebrating it next year on 15th of March 2021. So thank you for gathering us in this lovely community of World Speech Day participants, and well, that's wonderful. That's lovely. And well, thank you once again.
Thank you, Mariusz. Well, although World Speech Day 2020 was somewhat curtailed, World Speech Day 2021 will be, I'm sure, quite magnificent, and we'll look forward to your contribution.
They definitely will.
Thanks.
Yes. I'm
marvelous. Thank you so much. Bye, Mariusz.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.